What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bayview Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew, joined by Chris and Richie. And if our voices sound a little tired on this episode, it's because we just came off, all three of us, off almost 2 weeks worth of summer camp, working with teenagers and Gen Z and Gen A and all these kind of the next generation, and really cool stuff. And it kind of led us to today's episode where we're going to talk about maybe the spiritual awakening that we're seeing, and just the these younger generations. There seems to be a legitimate hunger for Jesus, or at least knowing more about Jesus that maybe we didn't expect. And it's kind of, I don't know, mind-blowing. And I think it's a really special time in the church, and maybe encouraging for us as leaders, or you as parents, or you as adults to really pour into the next gen. And it was good.
Yeah, and I think that word you just used is real important, that there's something encouraging happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been a long-standing dialogue all the way back to when I was doing student ministries, 20 years ago, of we're losing the next generation and everything's tapering off. And even the stats show that the nun category was growing, and it seemed like there was a lot of doomsdayers out there saying, like, it's all slowly going to crumble. And of course, we always know that that God's always got something different in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. So we did just come off, you two just came off of back-to-back high school and then middle school.
Yeah.
Which, how did you feel about that order? Like, it feels like middle school is draining. High school, I mean, they're both draining, but like, I was thinking if you guys, like, I think I would have flipped that around. I think I would have gone like, let's grind out the middle school time and in with high schoolers. But
it's weird. The high school, there's so much adrenaline because the way we do the camps, like the high school, this feels more intense.
Yeah.
Where the middle school, it feels way more like they're just younger. So it's like we're babysitting a little more, but the energy is different. So there's not as much adrenaline needed.
Right.
So I've almost wondered about flip-flopping those in the future, of like middle school first, then high school, if we would feel different. But I don't know. I don't know about you, Richie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the way we do it, middle school camp is actually easier in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because we do have purposeful built-in time for kids to be kids at middle school camp more.
That's
so.
cool. That's cool.
Where it's like, hey, we're going to play 9 square and gaga ball, and everyone's just going to be hanging out doing that thing for a while. And there's like the free time, like they love going to the lake more than the high schoolers do. And so there's just like more opportunity to just like hang out and play games and just like kids being kids. Whereas at high school camp, like way more scheduled.
Yeah.
Way more regimented. Like the big team games, they participate more like as a whole in those things and get hyped for those things.
Right.
And so high school feels a little bit like a bigger carry for that reason. Like
That's
we're
true.
on
Good.
more.
Yeah.
And then middle school camp, feels like a little bit of a, like we're like hitting bursts of sprint.
Yeah.
Versus high school camp feels like a full-blown sprint for like 4 straight days.
That's a good way to put it.
That's good. Yeah, no, that's a good point, and that's awesome. Yeah, I just finished down in southern Georgia off a 10-day camp, which that's mega rare.
Yeah.
Most camps are, especially now with everyone's schedules, are going down to that 3 to 5 day window, and so it's pretty rare still to have a camp that's 10 days. But still full-blown camp of 2 services a day, rec, team competitions, games. But in that Georgia heat,
That's crazy.
and humidity. But it was super cool. It was super encouraging. And I think that's what led us to this, is that we're hearing the reports, we're reading the reports, but we're seeing it, we're experiencing it as well. And I think that it is really good for us to spend some time talking about what are we experiencing, what are we seeing, and then even, all right, so what do we do with this? How can we come along beside this? How do we nurture this generation? How do we affirm that awakening? And I think even beyond that, how do we let them teach us a little bit? I think I heard somebody say at one point that a thriving student ministries can be the tail that wags the dog at the local church level, and there's something for us to really watch what their hunger and then ask ourselves, how do we become part of that?
Yeah.
So I know we were looking at some stats. When would we start seeing some of this dialogue in the media. It was probably not long after the big Asbury outpouring in 2023.
Yeah, I think that's when like the national attention really started to show up.
Yeah.
Is when Asbury started to take off.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like even for like mainstream media, that was like, yo, this is a weird thing. What's going on here? Right. Like a desire to understand, like a curiosity about what is this?
Yeah.
Because I mean, when was the last time we really saw something like that in our country happen like that? It's been a long time.
I don't think it's been in my lifetime.
Yeah.
That I've experienced that. And yeah. So, and if you're listening and you're not aware of what we're referring to, it was in February of 2023. What started as just a normal Wednesday chapel on the campus of Asbury University, which they have. I don't know if they do it every day or 3 times a week, whatever. It ended, and in fact, one of my favorite stories about it is that the gentleman who spoke that day, I remember reading some of his testimony about it. He felt like he just bombed. Like he called his wife afterwards, like, well, that was just, I tanked. That went nowhere. And we've all probably felt that. Like, we preach a message and we're like, well, that was a resounding thud. Which is also, as you and I have talked about, Andrew, that's usually when we get the most compliments.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, which this is ones where you're like, I nailed it today, and nobody says anything.
Yeah.
But what happened was it didn't end after that hour. It went into a second hour, and students just not wanting to leave and worshiping and just experiencing the Holy Spirit at a deep level. And it went into days. And then I can't remember how many weeks it ended up going.
Yeah, I can't remember either. It was a long time, though.
It was like 3 weeks or maybe a little, something in that scope.
There. Yeah.
And it was something that we have not experienced in our country. It's something that was sadly foreign to us. But it did start something.
Yeah.
It did start something. And then, like I said, the national media caught up with it. And then we start seeing, I don't think it's that it wasn't already stirring. I think it put it on the map, and then all of a sudden, even secular news organizations start digging in, like, what is going on here?
Sure.
And we start seeing those reports coming out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I know USA Today. Which if USA Today is writing about it, it's got to be a God thing, right? Because it's not like they're conservative media. They're McDonald's newspaper is what I always called them. Well, no, because here's the deal: back pre-heavy internet, like. If you went out, if you stopped by McDonald's, like, I'd get a USA Today, and because it was always at McDonald's. So
I remember that. I'm old enough to remember that. Yeah.
So McDonald's newspaper, awesome. But they wrote an article. Gen Z is returning to Christianity. Data proves it. And so I thought that was interesting for them. And New York Times had an article along that same lines. But then Barna, which is a faith-driven research organization, you were sharing some stats.
Yeah, they've done several surveys over the last several years, but the most recent one, they talked in terms of these 3 categories: committed Christian, meaning someone who is actively pursuing Jesus more than just Sunday service. They're reading their Bible, they're praying, they're attending extra services. Nominal Christians, meaning you probably just come on Sunday morning like once a month, maybe twice a month. And then all others, meaning other religions. I don't believe at all. I'm agnostic. I'm atheist. But their findings this past year were that 32% of teens in America claim themselves to be committed Christians, which is 10% higher than the global average. So that's a big gap. 10% is a big gap. 30% of them considered themselves to be nominal Christians, and 35% represented all others.
That's a big number. Did they? I don't have them in front of me. Did they have comparative stats to past generations of what that looked like?
Kind of what they were saying is that over the last 5 or 6 years, there's been like a gradual uptick in that number of people who called themselves committed. And there's not really a ton of stats for high schoolers like way back when in the same way. So basically, they're trying to be upfront and honest, right, about their research and say, we've changed the way we talk about this. We ask about this when we do research. So some of the older research isn't necessarily a one-to-one comparison because we were asking different questions.
Sure.
This is really the first time they've talked in terms of, are you actually committed versus would you call yourself a Christian? So in the past, the numbers might have been higher for the number of people who said, yes, I'm a Christian, but that didn't necessarily account for how committed they actually were. It could
Very
have been a
true.
cultural thing. And so they kind of talk about that at the beginning of their research, how they've changed the way they do it because they want to get a deeper understanding of who
Yeah.
these people are and what they're
Yeah.
about. But one of the interesting things they did say, even in this reporting, is that of all the teens they talked to, 52% of them were curious about who Jesus was,
I love that.
which is insane, right? Like to
Yeah.
think that of these students, 52% of them said, I would like to know more about who Jesus is, whether they're a committed Christian or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Break down like that jumps out at me in a different way because it's not saying that 52% of them are interested in attending church.
Mm-hmm.
52% of them, it's not saying that they're interested in a higher power or something spiritual. To say that they're interested in Jesus Christ himself.
Yeah.
That's a big shift.
Yeah, I think so, because I think, as we're coming out of the deconstruction time period in America, we're entering into a place where there is more of a conversation about who is Jesus, not necessarily what is the church.
Yep.
And I think I've seen that with teens and with interactions leaders are having with teens in small group even, is like this person of Jesus is becoming the focal point for them. And it's less about the institution of the church and more about the person of Jesus. And I think, in a certain respect, maybe that is the church for a while there, kind of putting the cart before the horse, making the church most important, and then Jesus is
Sure.
secondary to that, right? Come to church first and then find out who Jesus is,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
participate in church first and then we'll tell you who Jesus is. And now this generation is like, no, we want to know who Jesus is, and then we'll think about church after that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Which is really good. And I think that if we look far enough back, because we're all old enough to remember the big push of the seeker movement that came out of the late 80s into the 90s. And I think the motive, the heart behind it, cool. Like the idea was to make church less intimidating, make it less
Sure.
off-putting, get away from just it feeling so high religion. But as with many things, that pendulum swings a little far.
Yeah.
And there came that point where it's like now the church looks like they're just trying to be relevant and cool. Let's not use words that would turn anybody off. And that went from theology-driven words to like let's not talk about Jesus.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about sin. Let's not put a cross in the building. The cross is offensive, and so obviously it went to a way other side of it.
Yeah.
And I think that contributed a lot to that generation. I don't know, Generation X probably more. Gen X was probably more in that category,
Sure.
or at least they were experiencing the ramifications of that, to where church just became something that lacked. There's something that was lacking behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we noticed at camp, and I think you said this too in our conversations, that there's a lot less like emoting or emotion. Like there was a lot less like the typical camp experience that I think we're all so used to at summer camps. We're like super fun games, and then at chapel time everyone cries, and it's like that's just the norm. But I felt like this year we just saw way more authentic, like, and genuine conversations about Jesus and heart change and life change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we're seeing is, this generation that we say is just stuck online. It's like, yeah, they are. Like they're online. Like that's just the norm of their of culture for them. But there's this deep desire for like authenticity.
Yeah,
In my opinion. And
Yeah.
I think that's what was missing from the seeker church, right? It was
right.
It was all show with no substance. And that substance, I think, was the genuineness of who Christ is, the authenticity of the people who are teaching about who Jesus is. I think we're seeing a desire from these generations, like, if this is legit, well, like, let's be legit. And I think that's at least the vibe I'm getting. That's what I'm sensing from conversations with kids and older teenagers. And I don't know. I think it's really cool. It's really encouraging.
Yeah. So let's keep breaking that down then. Let's because we have the research, but then again, we all just were living and breathing it for a period of time. So what else did you begin? What felt different maybe this time around? Like we all are huge fans of camp and the camp experience. I will always be. I think there's something really powerful about that. I know for me that camp moments really are threshold moments through my past. A lot
Yeah.
of my major life decisions, my call to ministry happened at a camp while I was a counselor, and I'm there to support the students, and all of a sudden God hits me between the eyes, and so. So I love it, but I grew up and I did student ministries during that time where it was like, all right, if we don't have an hour-long cry fest at the altar every night, we're missing the mark. Like we need, and it was always, I guess there was something satisfying or gratifying about all these kids just on their face. And again, not downplaying, not saying that things weren't happening, that God was not,
Sure.
they were not having an encounter with Jesus, but it was an emotional thing. And then we come to the classic youth pastor, student ministries pastor puzzle of like, all right, how do we take the camp high and bring it home? How do we keep?
Yep.
And it's like, what if the camp high isn't the goal?
Yeah. Well, I think we said that, like, I didn't leave with a camp high this year.
Yeah.
Like, because even as a leader, like, I think we feel that too. We feel like, whoa, we just did, like, this was so cool. This is so amazing. Like, it obviously was super fun. I saw this, like, quote unquote, life change from kids. And I would experience that camp high. And I left this year just being like, wow, that was a really cool week.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a dissatisfied feeling. It was a truly satisfied, but like, that's what this week was supposed to be. And I think in terms of kids, the biggest thing I noticed this year was the necessity of the personal invite. Like, I had so many kids on the fence about coming until I said, would you please come to camp? Or I believe you should come to camp.
Wow.
More than ever. I feel like in years past, we just say, hey, camp's coming, and kids sign up, parents sign them up.
Yeah.
And I would say probably half the group, I had to at least do some sort of like, hey, no pressure, I think you should be there. And then those kids, that's when they signed up.
Yeah.
Up until the last moment, like, which is pretty typical. But like, just that it seemed, again, I go back to the authentic, like there's this desire to be seen, to be known, authentic relationships. Like there's something there where it's like, we talk about relationship with Jesus, but then if we're not in relationship as well, like that feels fake.
Yeah. I think too, in the last, that was my third year kind of doing like the all city camp thing. Right. And something that I think we've really pressed into and we've really chased after is that we don't want camp to feel like a completely foreign and separate experience of their life with Jesus and their life in the church. We want it to feel like a very concentrated version of what they're already experiencing in the church. And so we do spend more time in small groups. And we bank on small groups being the place where the life change is really going to be solidified. We create opportunities, really, and this is kind of how I think about it, right? We're trying to take their interest and their curiosity and turn it into some sort of action. And that's what we're trying to do as a church too, right? Like when teens come on a Wednesday night, we're not trying to just, throw a pizza party every week and then hope that they keep wanting to come when they're young adults. No, we're trying to take some of this curiosity that they naturally have about Jesus and like guide them for that to become an action of giving their life away to him. And I really feel like this year at camp, and I think that speaks to like the lack of like, emotional response that we saw. Man, we saw a lot more confession though.
Wow.
And we saw a lot more kids saying, man, I don't want to live this way anymore.
Yeah.
And we saw a lot more kids for the first time sharing in small groups.
Wow.
And just being open and honest in their small group, and their small group coming around them and saying, let's talk about that. Let's pray about that. And so I think, by the grace of God, he's led us into this place where we are just creating a more like intense version of kind of what we're already trying to do as churches to help young people know Jesus and to grow in their faith. And so, I think that was a huge part of it this year.
That's super cool. Like it almost feels like it's, instead of them having like this emotional camp experience, they're having this genuine Jesus experience, which is so different. I saw the same thing at the camp I just got back from, and that was a couple of things really jumped out at me. One, we would start each morning with a big time just with all the counselors, all the staff, and probably about 20 of us. in the circle. And by day 2, the narrative and conversations coming out of the small groups from the students was already, all right, how do I go home and not just let this be another camp? How do I go home and not fall back into the same sins, the same ruts, same addictions, whatever it may be? And it was so, I was very surprised. Like, I did not see that coming, for that to be on their mind right away. So often it's like, let's get to camp, let's have fun, which is fine. Which is part of it. Let's have some really awesome worship. Let's have some emotional experiences, and then the last couple of days you start talking about, all right, well, now what? Now how do you take this home? So for that to be so quickly on the map, I was like, wow, that was awesome. That means they are thinking through their own experiences of, I've come here, I've done this, I've had the Cry Fest, I've confessed and made commitments, and they've lasted days or weeks when I get home, and I'm the same person now that I was a year ago, and they don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
We didn't have to convince them of that. Like,
Right.
I was like, well, you just took away like 3 of my messages. Like, I don't know what to go from here. Like, I had 3 nights planned of like, this is what you should want. And they're like, no, we want it. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to have to dig into the archives or something here. So that was surprising. And then we saw a similar thing to what you just mentioned, Richie. The way this camp is structured, I won't go into it, but a significant number of the students and young adults attending, small groups are not required. They were optional. They're required for some, and just the logistics of the way this large camp was put together. We saw a tremendous increase in students opting in.
Wow.
Like I would walk around and just observe these groups meeting during the day, and they were huge numbers of huge circles of students and leaders, and then the next morning we'd hear how the evening devos in their dorms and their cabins would go till 1 and 2 in the morning, and that they were having confession time, and they're praying over each other, and they were finding release from sins, and like the spiritual awakening was happening in these dorm gatherings and not at the big service. And I was so excited to hear that.
That's epic.
So excited to hear that, because that means something real is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like, that's kind of what, at least for me, that's what I hope for when I get up to preach.
Yeah.
Is that this would just be a catalyst for something more that they're going to jump into themselves, right? Into small group, into conversations with their parents, into conversations with friends at school. I don't ever want the experience of the worship and the preaching to be the beginning and the end of the experience that they're having with the Lord. And so, we're just trying to use it as a catalyst to propel them forward, as a moment where maybe we can invite them to think about something they haven't thought about, or to challenge themselves, or to have some courage to step out in faith to do something that feels scary, or to say something that feels scary. And then to see them take that and run with it, which I think speaks to the authenticity that they desire, right? They've seen church services that are all emotion, and they walk away and that was crazy, but then what did it do? They've been to camps that were like that, which probably speaks to why the personal invite became so important this year. It's like, well, I've already done that, and I saw what happened when I came back. And so I really do think that, like, the preaching and the teaching and the worship and even the response time at the end of a service is all still good and necessary and helpful, but it has to come from the place of, we want this to be the springboard into what's next for them, which sometimes is right away, right? Like, they go to the dorm room and they're up until 2 a.m. praying for each other, but also I really should show up at church on Wednesdays and be part of a small group. I really should go to Young Life on Monday morning at school. I should go to the Bible study on Friday morning that's happening at school. I should participate in these things, because like that experience that I had at camp exists when I give my life away to Jesus every day.
Absolutely. I tried something this 2 weeks ago at this camp. I'd done it maybe years ago, but the students' response kind of put it back on my radar. I challenged them during one of the sessions to pull out their cell phones, which they usually, it's a big no-no, right? But I was like, no, I'm giving you permission. And I said, listen, if there is if there's something you need to confess, if there is a conversation you need to have or a relationship you need to end because it's not godly, I want you right now to text that person.
Wow.
And I said, if you need to talk to mom and dad, I want you to text them right now. Mom and dad, when I get home, we need to talk. Just leave it there. If it's a youth pastor, hey, when I get home, I need to meet. Or if it's a relationship, like if I mean, how many students are in relationships where they're grasping to the whole missionary dating concept of like, I'm going to love them to Jesus, and text that person right now, hey, we need to talk when I get back. They know what that means, right? We all know what that means in high school vernacular. And I was really, really excited to see how many students took me up on that challenge. And I said, you want it to be real when you go home? It starts now.
Yeah.
But they did it because they want it to be real. They want it. So the question then, how much of that, obviously it's the Holy Spirit. It's this awakening. But how much does it also come into play that maybe they've watched how mom and dad haven't made it real? Right? I mean, as pastors' kids, I think we all know how for a lot of PKs, that's a very big challenge in the walk of any pastor's kid growing up in a home where you watch dad, or some cases mom, but you watch dad get up and preach on a Sunday morning. But how often do maybe PKs get discouraged because, well, that's not the same guy that's at home.
Sure.
And so I know I've talked to a lot of pastors' kids. Yeah. That's their challenge. But I think even for students, like, maybe they watch mom and dad on a Sunday morning, raise their hands and worship and come to church and talk all the right talk. But then they're like, but that's not what we see at home. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's part of it. Has maybe, I'm wondering if that has also contributed to this need for something more.
Yeah.
This craving for something real.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, even beyond just like the behavioral side of it, it's also but we skip church for any number of things. Mm-hmm. Like at the drop of a hat, we won't show up, right? We prioritize sports over Wednesday night. You know what I mean? And I even had a conversation with a young adult who is on their way, who is coming to lead at a camp. And on the way up, they were saying how their parents this year, for the first time ever, said, you will not go to practice on Wednesday night if it interferes with church.
So good.
And they didn't do that with their first two kids. But now they're seeing, man, oh man, our kids need to be there. Our kids need to know that this is what we're prioritizing, right? And so I even think that as this younger generation is saying, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it for real. I'm not going to play games with it. Like, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
I don't want to be fake.
Yeah.
But it's also starting to leak out into their parents a little bit too. And that's not the first conversation I've had where a parent has said, we decided not to travel for sports this year. We decided that we're going to prioritize being there. We decided we're going to start serving because in a certain respect, their kids are like leading up to them.
Yeah.
Like, why are we going to do this if we're not going to do it for real?
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge, huge thing that the church can lean into and really press into is, okay, as we minister to these kids, and these kids are even challenging me, right?
Yeah.
They're challenging the leaders too. Like, how serious are we being? To then also come back to the parents and be like, hey, like collectively as a group, how can we be intentional and serious about this to foster the way that these kids are acting and feeling and experiencing the Lord and the seriousness that they're bringing to it? Like, what do we need to change to continue to help them to grow? So when they hit that 18 to 24, they're not going to slip out of that commitment level, but they're going to double down into it. They're going to seek it out more. They're going to pursue it when they have the freedom to choose.
Yeah. Yep. I love that thought of the students having that impact on their parents. Because I think last year you even had a student who is a pretty accomplished athlete in a couple sports, I think hockey and lacrosse, but wasn't it last year that he told his mom and dad, like, it conflicts with camp and I'm choosing camp.
Yep. Yeah, it was to him, camp was the more important thing, like just being a part of it. And it kind of weighed the cost, right? Like sometimes, and this is a whole different conversation, it's like the workout would trump doing something else. And it was like, really? Like you going and lifting weights like is going to dictate whether or not you come to something or go do something.
Yeah. And
I think we're beginning to see, I think teens begin to weigh some of that stuff of like, oh, this isn't even a practice, and I'm supposed to skip something that actually is more important to long-term life than.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing little moments where students are beginning to make that decision of like what actually is most important, which is encouraging.
Yeah, it's super encouraging. What are some things that and because I don't think there's any debate that this something real is happening. I don't think that it's a waste of our time to try and go down because something is happening.
Yeah.
It's undeniable. We're seeing it. We're hearing it. We're experiencing it. Maybe if there's a parent listening, what does that mean to a parent? Like if you're, if how do you one come along beside your student, but maybe beyond that, like what does this mean for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think about a lot is I officially have a teenager now. So Emmett's 13. He's
Nice.
going into 8th grade this year. And one of the things that Becky and I talk about a lot, just as he's growing up, is we have to be very careful never to become a stumbling block for him.
Mm.
And, being a pastor's kid and now him being a pastor's kid, right? That's a very real thing. That was a struggle for me growing up. And part of that means that if he ever wants to choose church over something else, we shouldn't fight him about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, that doesn't necessarily come naturally because we think in terms of, church will be there next week, but this is, this only happens this week. And there might be some times where that's true, right? Like something's going on, a family thing or whatever. That's like, no, we really need to be there for that instead. And you can have a conversation about that. But for instance, like if there's practice on Wednesday nights and, your kid is like, I really think I should go to church. I want to talk to my coach about leaving early on Wednesday or don't fight them.
Yeah.
Right. If they're doing something that is going to help them follow Jesus more closely, don't become the stumbling block that causes them to second guess that or to not want to do it.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Go ahead.
No, it's kind of in what I was a little bit what Richie was saying and what we were just saying a moment ago of like counting the cost almost is I look at it like there's workouts, there's practices, there's games. And it's like some of those things are without a doubt more important than other things when it comes to that sport or that fill in the blank activity. And it's like, I don't know how many times I've had with parents or with students where it's like, I can't do something because I've got to go do this. And when I'm sitting there going like, as a former athlete, I'm like, yeah, that's a joke and that's a bad coach. They're making that non-mandatory thing mandatory.
Sure.
And I think you as a parent should have the agency to maybe stand up for your child in that moment, especially like what Richie is saying of like this skipping this weightlifting session to go to youth group or go to camp or it's like one of those things is without a doubt way more important than the other.
Right.
And I think just as parents, like modeling like what is most valuable to us as a family, what's most important to us. And again, I played sports. I did the things like I made those decisions. I showed up late to youth group still, even though because practice. Like I think there's just little stuff that's like, I think Richie's 100% correct. Like if a kid wants church, like why is that being shut down for something else?
So you're saying Allen Iverson was onto something?
It's just practice.
It's just practice.
No, I think you're right, and I think that we all, as parents, we all can slide into that unintentionally of like, but no, you've got to succeed in this, and maybe it's us living out our own unmet dreams, or or maybe it's us feeling like, well, their kid, I mean, we all get caught into that unintentionally, but if you step back and have a moment of just clarity and just think through it, like, wait a second, my kid is wanting to choose church over this. I can't find an angle where that's ever a bad thing. And I think we need to say this too. We're not dogging travel sports. We're not dogging and we're not trying to shame anybody whose kids are. I'm not saying that at all. Even in that environment, you can still demonstrate the priority. I talked with a family. There's a family that's super involved here at Bayview, huge sports family. But yesterday, we heard one of the daughters say, "Hey, when we're on the road at a tournament on Sunday mornings, we find a church."
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Right.
That's awesome. Okay, so we're going to travel, but we're not going to miss out on what we do on Sundays.
Yep.
Right.
That's still instilling in them this priority. And I know for me, even though I fought it as a kid and was always angry about it, because like you guys, like sports was a major part of my life. But my dad was always like, yeah, we're not missing church for this.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter the high level of opportunity I had with soccer. He was just really firm, and I couldn't understand it, and I was like, come on, Dad, it's just church.
Yep.
And I appreciate so much that they stood their ground and they never let me they never gave into that thought process of, oh, it is just church. And it's never just church.
Right.
It's never just Sunday. It's Sunday. And it's not about the church service. It's the Lord's Day. We're told to keep it holy. It's the Sabbath. It's an opportunity to gather and be in his house and be with other believers. And this is his bride, right? I mean, and so we're not trying to tell parents, hey, pull all your kids out of travel sports and stop doing all this. But even in that environment, how are you demonstrating what's most important?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, like, especially for families who maybe do have a busier schedule for whatever reason it is, whether it's sports or otherwise, is encouraging relationships outside of your home that are spiritually minded, friends who go to church, spending time with other families, being part of a home group, right, where they have other kids similar ages, or a little bit younger, a little bit older, encouraging that kid to, shoot a text to the kids who are in their small group at youth group, or to their leader, or to the youth pastor, or whatever, like to encourage well, hey, we can't make it on Wednesday this week. You should shoot a text to your small group leader and let them know what's going on, and maybe ask them to pray for you if you got something going on, or just check in with your small group and see how it went on Thursday morning, or whatever it is. And so to keep that at the forefront of their mind, even if they're not able to participate for whatever reason, I think is also huge. And it doesn't have to be Sunday morning, Wednesday night for you to have good, solid spiritual relationships and interactions. And so if you can't make one, or you can't be there, or something's going on, figure out some other things, right? Be like fluid in your ability and your desire to interact with the people of God, and to participate in a relationship that will be healthy for you as you follow Jesus.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess I'll go a little preacher on you even now, that if you're listening and that whole concept seems a little foreign, maybe you need to evaluate, what is your spiritual hunger? What is your desire to be in that constant place of seeking him more and seeking that community more? And because I think a lot of what has created this disenchantment with what they've watched from the generations before them is that it doesn't seem to be having any traction. It doesn't seem to really be affecting the way they do business or life or whatever. And it's like, so I think there's so much that we can learn from this. I was actually really, really challenged by some of the young adults that I was working with at this camp, who, granted, a couple of them were theology students, and so they came, armed to the hilt, ready to go, right? Like, I forgot that class a long time ago. But it wasn't from an intellectual standpoint of, let me show you what I know. There was like something so genuine about it. And I found myself, this sounds crazy, and if any of you are listening, thank you for doing this to me. I found myself like each morning kind of reading and kind of preparing my heart for some of the conversations I know were coming. But it wasn't from so I can impress him. It was like, man, I want to be hungry like they're hungry again. And that sounds crazy for a pastor to say that, but sometimes my hunger gets a little less hungry. And so I found myself being inspired by these students and inspired by what I saw them craving and pursuing, and like, man, I don't want to slip out of that. And so parents, hey, maybe there's some learning to do. And that'd be good.
That'd be awesome.
What about local church? Like, how do you guys foresee us as the local church? What are some things that we're currently doing, or things maybe like, hey, I think we need to begin to really focus on? What are some things we can do because honestly, I think I love that it's nothing we created, that none of us can be like, hey, we helped we helped spark that flame. It's a Holy Spirit movement. But now there is this, part of, I think, what our calling is that we're here to nurture it and steward it and help build it. What are some things maybe the local church can be doing to help this continue and sustain into something that is a movement?
Yeah, I think one thing that can't be understated is like a willingness to pray. Because there are a lot of people in the church who might not really know any young people. Maybe they just don't have young people in their lives, especially at their local church. Maybe they're grandkids or whatever live somewhere else, whatever it is. Just be thinking about them and praying for them as they go to school, as they play sports, as they're just like living their life. Like, just the simple prayer of, God, I pray that you'd continue to just give them hunger for you and desire for you. and also the prayer of, God, just reveal to me personally if there's anyone or anything that I could participate in to fan the flame for somebody. And I think sometimes, we do kind of get these divides, like these age divides in the church, where it's like, oh, here's these age groups and they're all really segmented and they only interact with each other. And, praying for opportunity to just be kind to a young person or to make a connection with a young person. Maybe you know their parents or you knew their grandparents or whatever it is. And to just step in that and to just like care about them and love them and pray for them.
That's good. One of the coolest things I've watched happen here over the last few years is very near to our location is the Interlochen School for Performing Arts, which you've done a ton of great ministry out there. If you don't know what that is, it's basically it's a high level music and arts.
It's international.
It's international, but the students live here, so these are high school students. It's a boarding school, I've loved watching it because a few years ago we had a group of students from Interlochen School choose to come to Bayview in the mornings for church, and the bus would drop them off. Still do. And I watched an older couple in our church, Carl and Louise Holder, whose grandkids have kids, right? So they're probably close to being great grandparents, maybe. I watched them not just engage with them, not just pray for them, which is all important. They adopted these students. They literally adopted them, and they would have them to their house for Sunday dinners, and they would throw get-togethers. And at Christmas time, they would have a Christmas party, have gifts for them, and they became like their adopted grandparents away from home, recognizing these students are living far away from mom and dad in high school, and it was amazing watching this just incredible investment. And I think some of us, even at our age, like sometimes like students won't think we're cool enough, or they're gonna be they'll be weird if we engage with them.
Yeah.
And these students loved it. And last year we baptized several of these students. I mean, that's amazing. And I don't think that was because they heard great preaching. I think it's because there was deep spiritual investment from people pouring into them, and through that they had this Jesus experience. And so, I would encourage you to look at that. Maybe some of us live in a college town. Maybe, there's always young adults who are far from home and are students. Look for those opportunities.
Yeah.
Step out.
Yeah. I think for me, the theme of the podcast has just been authenticity. Like, I think for the church to, which I was a little bit like at our staff vision day, just the more and more sense to be yourself, like, and making the main thing Jesus, and not being overly concerned with whether or not the preacher wore a suit and tie, or like, there's just some of that stuff that I think is just not important to people anymore in the church.
Yeah.
And I think as the church as a whole kind of begins to see that, it's going to allow, I think, more genuine and authentic interactions and relationships to happen. And I think exactly what you're saying, like with that example, is like the students, they show up in the clothes they have, and like, instead of this older couple, and as we say, like the segmenting of the ages and the desires and thoughts of what should be, it's like that all was put aside, and they just were loved on. And it's like, I think as a local church gets more into that mindset of like, there's just things that aren't important anymore that we've made important. And I'm not talking about like big rocks, I'm talking like some of the more like aesthetics and things that we, for some reason, said matter in the church. I don't think this generation's looking for it.
Yeah.
I think it's just going to come back to like us just being ourselves and just genuinely caring.
In fact, I think some of those things have become almost a stumbling block to this generation. Like I've heard some reports and read some things about this generation. If they walk in and it's the light show with the hazers and fog, and they're like, we're out. Like that's not what we're looking for.
Yep.
And classic church, and I say this as part of the Big C Church, is we think they know what they want, but we've never stopped to listen and ask, what are they looking for?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an opportunity for us to listen right now.
Yeah.
And hear and learn and come along beside them, but not in like, isn't this adorable? But come along beside them and like, hey, let's grow together.
Yeah.
Let's be. Guess what? Generation Gen Z and Boomers, like we can now dive in and become part of this movement with them,
Mm-hmm.
and we can experience revival.
Yep.
This isn't just for this generation. It's something that can awaken the church as a whole, and we are seeing that. I think even not go back at all the stats, but even stats wise, we're seeing a leveling off of what has been a decline for a long time.
Yeah.
And I know it's like yay plateau, but when you're going down, flatline is not bad for just starting
Right.
point. You got to
Yeah.
start somewhere, and I think that's a lot of optimism, and I just feel so much of the time as adult followers of Jesus, we spend so much time talking about what's negative and what's not going right and how bad all of it is and all this and but where's the hope? What about the hope? And is it Second Peter where it says, I can't remember where it says always be ready to tell someone about the hope you have.
Yeah.
You know, that's always been so cool. It's like, it didn't say, hey, always be ready to tell someone what time your church services are, or always be ready to tell someone the theology of sanctification or your favorite memory verse.
Right.
It's like, no, we live in a world that lacks any real hope.
Yeah.
Because we know that the only true hope is in Jesus Christ. And so it's like, hey, be ready to always tell somebody, why is it that in the midst of all the chaos, all the violence, all the negativity, somehow you walk with a spirit of hope?
Yeah.
What's that about?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big deal. And I think we're seeing that even stirring in this generation right now.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. I am. I'm excited. I think it's an incredible time to be a follower of Jesus. I think the opportunity to make a difference is as big as ever.
Yeah.
I've always felt that the darker it gets, the more significant the tiniest light stands out.
Yeah.
You come into a bright room and you light a little Bic lighter, a little flame. It doesn't really have an impact. But if you go into a pitch black room, you light that little thing, it shines.
Yeah.
And I feel like, don't be discouraged by the darkness. Be encouraged that we have an opportunity.
100%.
We have an opportunity,
Yeah.
and I love that our students are kind of leading the way.
Yeah. 100%.
It's exciting times. So, if you're listening, we're figuring this out with you.
Mm-hmm.
We do it vocationally, but at the same time, you're raising a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have them before you know it, we're here to kind of learn as well and to listen, and we want to be praying and listening and seeing what God's up to, because I feel like God is up to something really significant.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, hey, thanks for being with us today. Hopefully this was a time that was something special for you. We are here each and every week. If you haven't done so, click like or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. That way you never miss an episode. And so for today, it's Andrew, Richie, Chris. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time around.